Welcome to another mind-blowing compilation of 101 random facts about the U.S. that 99% of Americans get wrong. Now let's begin. Number one. Many people believe the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776. However, while it was adopted on that date, most of the signatures were not added until August 2nd, 1776. The process of signing took weeks because not all signers were present at the same time. Some delegates didn't sign at all. The idea that all the Founding Fathers gathered in one place on July 4th is a misconception often reinforced by paintings and movies. Number 2. It is widely assumed that the U.S. Constitution explicitly grants Americans the right to vote. In reality, voting rights are governed by constitutional amendments and state laws. The original Constitution did not mention voting at all. Over time, amendments like the 15th, 19th, and 26th expanded suffrage. However, even today, voting rights can be restricted by individual states, meaning not every American has an absolute constitutional right to vote without legislative intervention or legal challenges. Number 3. Many believe the Liberty Bell cracked on July 4th, 1776, during the Declaration of Independence reading. However, historians agree that the bell was not rung on that day. The famous crack appeared much later, in the 19th century. The Liberty Bell was originally cast in 1752, and it actually cracked multiple times over the years due to poor quality metal. The widely told story of it cracking on Independence Day is purely a historical myth. Number 4. It's a common belief that George Washington had wooden teeth. While he did have dental issues, his dentures were not made of wood. Instead, they were crafted from materials such as gold, ivory, lead, and even human and animal teeth. Some of the teeth were likely taken from enslaved people. The wooden teeth myth may have originated because Washington's dentures became stained over time, giving them a grainy, wooden appearance, leading to widespread misunderstanding. Number 5. Many believe that Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity by flying a kite in a thunderstorm and being struck by lightning. While Franklin did conduct kite experiments, he was never directly hit by lightning. Instead, he used a key to test the electrical properties of the storm. If he had been struck, he would likely have died instantly. His real contribution was proving that lightning is a form of electricity, which helped shape our understanding of electrical science. Number 6. People often think the United States is the largest country in the world by land area. In reality, America is the third largest country, behind Russia and Canada. The total U.S. landmass is approximately 3.8 million square miles. Russia is significantly larger, covering over 6.6 million square miles. Canada, with about 3.85 million square miles, slightly surpasses the U.S. in land area, though some calculations consider the two nearly equal. The misconception likely stems from maps distorting scale. Number 7. Many believe that English is the official language of the United States. Surprisingly, the U.S. has no official national language at the federal level. While English is the most commonly spoken language and is used for government documents, the Constitution does not designate it as the official language. Some states have passed laws making English their official language, but federally, no such law exists. The country has always been linguistically diverse due to immigration and cultural influence. Number 8. It is often said that the United States is a democracy. However, the country is actually a constitutional republic. While democratic principles are part of the system, the government operates through elected representatives and follows the Constitution's laws. A direct democracy would require citizens to vote on every issue, rather than electing officials to make decisions. The distinction is important because it highlights how power is structured and exercised within the American government system at all levels. Number 9. People commonly believe that apple pie is an American invention. However, the dessert originated in England and was adapted from European recipes. Early settlers brought apple-based pie recipes with them from Europe, where apples had been cultivated for centuries. The phrase "as American as apple pie" became popular during the 20th century, particularly after World War II. Although the dish is beloved in the U.S., it was not invented there and has a long international history. Number 10. Many assume that fortune cookies originated in China. In reality, they were invented in California, most likely by Japanese-American immigrants in the early 20th century. The cookies became popular in Chinese restaurants after World War II, but they were not a Chinese tradition. Today, they are almost unheard of in China. Instead, they are an Americanized version of a Japanese-style cookie, shaped by cultural adaptation and the development of Chinese-American cuisine in the United States. Number 11. A common myth is that Coca-Cola was originally green. This misconception likely stems from confusion over old glass bottles, which had a slight green tint due to the materials used. However, Coca-Cola has always been caramel-colored since its creation in 1886. The drink's formula has changed slightly over the years, but it has never been green. This myth continues to circulate, especially online, despite clear historical evidence proving it false. The original recipe included coca leaves. Number 12. Many Americans believe it is illegal to drive barefoot. In reality, no U.S. state has a law prohibiting barefoot driving. While driving without shoes may be discouraged due to safety concerns, such as reduced control of pedals, it is not illegal anywhere in the country. Some states have recommendations against it, but no official laws exist banning the practice. If an accident occurs while driving barefoot, the driver might face negligence charges, but it remains legal. Number 13. People often think it is illegal to own a tank in the U.S. Surprisingly, it is legal for civilians to purchase and own tanks, provided the gun is demilitarized or proper federal licenses are obtained. Many collectors legally own decommissioned military vehicles, and some even drive them on private property. However, operating a tank on public roads usually requires special permits and modifications. The government does regulate weapons, but owning an armored vehicle is not outright illegal. Number 14. Many believe that police officers must tell you they are cops if asked directly. This is a popular myth often depicted in movies, but in reality, undercover officers are not required to identify themselves. If someone asks, "Are you a cop?" and an undercover officer says no, it is not considered entrapment. Police deception is legally allowed in many investigative scenarios, especially in drug stings or organized crime cases, as long as entrapment laws are not violated. Number 15. Many people think the Statue of Liberty is in New York. However, it is technically in New Jersey waters. The statue is located on Liberty Island, which, despite being associated with New York, falls under New Jersey's jurisdiction. A Supreme Court ruling in the 1990s confirmed this. However, the mailing address and official administration are still controlled by New York. This geographical confusion is why many still believe it belongs solely to New York City. Number 16. A widespread myth suggests that Mount Rushmore has a secret room behind the heads of the presidents. While there is a small chamber behind Lincoln's head, it is not a hidden room with treasure or conspiracy secrets. The chamber, known as the Hall of Records, was designed to store historical documents, but it remains largely unfinished and closed to the public. Its intended purpose was to educate future generations about the significance of Mount Rushmore. Number 17. Many believe the Hollywood sign was always meant to be a permanent landmark. Originally, the sign read Hollywoodland and was an advertisement for a real estate development in 1923. It was never intended to last more than a few years. However, as Hollywood became synonymous with the film industry, the sign was preserved and later modified to its current form in 1949. Today, it is a protected historical landmark and a famous symbol of Los Angeles. Number 18. People often think the bald eagle is the only national bird of the U.S. While it is the official national emblem, the wild turkey was actually considered as an alternative by Benjamin Franklin. Franklin famously criticized the bald eagle, calling it a bird of bad moral character, and praising the turkey as more respectable. Although the bald eagle became the official bird, this historical debate has led to the false belief that Franklin seriously pushed for the turkey. Number 19. Many believe that cowboys in the Old West wore 10-gallon hats, but this is inaccurate. The large hats associated with cowboys were actually inspired by Mexican vaqueros, and they did not hold 10 gallons of water. The term likely comes from the Spanish word galón, meaning a decorative hat braid, rather than referring to liquid capacity. Cowboys in the 1800s wore practical, wide-brimmed hats, but they weren't as exaggerated as modern Hollywood portrays them. Number 20. People believe that the Great Chicago Fire was caused by a cow kicking over a lantern. The famous story claims Mrs. O'Leary's cow started the fire in 1871. However, this was never proven, and Mrs. O'Leary denied it until her death. The real cause is unknown, but some suspect arson or natural causes. The cow legend became popular because it made for a dramatic and memorable story, even though no concrete evidence supports it. Number 21. A common misconception is that the US dollar is backed by gold. In reality, America abandoned the gold standard in 1971 under President Richard Nixon. Since then, the US dollar has been a fiat currency, meaning its value is based on government regulation rather than gold reserves. Some people still believe paper money can be exchanged for gold at banks, but this hasn't been true for decades. The dollar's value is now based on economic confidence. Number 22. Some think Amazon was the first online retailer, but online shopping existed before Amazon was founded in 1994. The first online purchase dates back to 1979 when a British inventor, Michael Aldrich, developed an early online transaction system. Additionally, companies like eBay and CDNAW were online retailers before Amazon expanded beyond books. While Amazon is now the world's largest online retailer, it was not the first company to sell products over the internet. Number 23. Many believe McDonald's invented the hamburger, but the idea of a ground beef patty dates back much earlier. Hamburgers originated from Germany's Hamburg steak, which German immigrants brought to the US in the 19th century. While McDonald's popularized the fast food version, the first modern hamburger was likely served in the late 1800s by restaurants in Texas or Connecticut. The McDonald's brand revolutionized fast food burgers, but it did not invent them. Number 24. A popular myth claims that the US banned sliced bread during World War II to save resources. While there was a brief ban in 1943 due to concerns about packaging and cost, it lasted only a few weeks before being lifted. People protested heavily, and the ban was deemed unnecessary. The story of banning sliced bread is often exaggerated, leading some to believe it was a long-standing wartime policy when it was actually very short-lived. Number 25. Many Americans think the Coriolis effect causes toilets to flush in different directions depending on which hemisphere you're in. This is not true for small bodies of water like sinks or toilets. The Coriolis effect does influence large-scale weather patterns, such as hurricanes, but household plumbing is too small for it to matter. The direction of a toilet flush depends on the design of the plumbing, not the Earth's rotation. The myth persists due to movies and television. Number 26. A common myth says that Americans only use 10% of their brains. In reality, neuroscience has proven that almost all parts of the brain are active, even during rest. MRI scans show that different regions perform specific tasks, meaning there's no unused portion waiting to be unlocked. This myth is often repeated in movies or self-improvement speeches, but it has no scientific basis. The human brain is fully active, even when performing simple tasks. Number 27. Many people think Thanksgiving has always been celebrated on the fourth Thursday of November, but this was not always the case. The first national Thanksgiving proclamation was made by Abraham Lincoln in 1863, and before that, different states celebrated it on various dates. In 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt temporarily moved Thanksgiving to the third Thursday of November to extend the holiday shopping season. Due to backlash, it was permanently set to the fourth Thursday in 1941. Number 28. A common myth is that Black Friday got its name because it's the day retailers go into the black, profit. In reality, the term originated in Philadelphia in the 1960s when police used it to describe the chaotic traffic and crowds on the day after Thanksgiving. It wasn't until the 1980s that the idea of going into the black was promoted by retailers as a way to put a positive spin on the term. Number 29. Many believe the Easter Bunny was invented in America, but it actually comes from Germany. German immigrants brought the tradition of the Osterhase, an egg-laying hare, to America in the 1700s. Children would make nests for the hare to leave eggs. Over time, the tradition evolved into the modern American Easter Bunny. The practice of decorating eggs is even older, dating back to ancient times in Persia, Ukraine, and Mesopotamia, making it far older than the US number 30. Some believe that baseball was invented by Abner Doubleday in 1839, but there is no evidence of this. The game evolved from British sports like rounders and cricket, and its modern rules were shaped by Alexander Cartwright in 1845. The Doubleday myth was spread in the early 1900s to give baseball a patriotic, uniquely American origin story. However, historians agree that baseball gradually developed rather than being created by one person at a specific time. Number 31. Many think the Super Bowl trophy is called the Lombardi Trophy because Vince Lombardi founded the NFL, but he did not. The NFL was established in 1920, long before Lombardi's coaching career. The Super Bowl trophy was named after him posthumously in 1970 because of his legendary success as head coach of the Green Bay Packers, who won the first 2 Super Bowls. While he is an icon in football history, he did not create the NFL. Number 32. It's commonly believed that basketball was invented in America, but the sport was actually created in Canada by Dr. James Naismith in 1891. While Naismith was working in Springfield, Massachusetts at the time, he was born and raised in Canada. He designed basketball as an indoor game for students to stay active during winter. Although basketball became a major American sport, its inventor was Canadian, making it a shared part of North American history. Number 33. Many believe that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, but he did not. While Edison improved the design and made it commercially viable in 1879, the idea had existed for decades. British scientist Humphrey Davy created the first electric arc lamp in 1802, and inventors like Warren de la Rue and Joseph Swan worked on early filament bulbs. Edison's real achievement was perfecting the light bulb's longevity and making it practical for everyday use. Number 34. A widespread myth suggests that the Wright brothers invented the airplane out of nowhere, but aviation experiments were already happening before their 1903 flight. Otto Lilienthal, a German aviation pioneer, had been developing gliders in the 1890s, and others had attempted powered flight. The Wright brothers' real breakthrough was their invention of 3-axis control, allowing pilots to maneuver planes effectively. Their contribution was monumental, but the idea of human flight had been developing for decades. Number 35. People often believe that Henry Ford invented the automobile, but he did not. The first car was created by Carl Benz in 1885 in Germany. Ford's real innovation was the assembly line, which made cars affordable and mass-produced. His Model T, introduced in 1908, revolutionized the auto industry by making cars accessible to middle-class Americans. The idea of motor vehicles existed long before Ford, but his manufacturing techniques transformed the way automobiles were produced. Number 36. A common belief is that Alaska is the northernmost, westernmost, and easternmost state. While it's true that Alaska is both the farthest north and west, it is also the easternmost state because the Aleutian Islands cross the international date line. This unusual geographical fact means that Alaska is technically the U.S. state that extends the farthest in 3 different directions, making it one of the most geographically unique places in the country. Number 37. People think Death Valley is the hottest place on Earth, but that title actually belongs to Lut Desert in Iran, where surface temperatures have been recorded at 70.7 degrees Celsius. However, Death Valley still holds the record for the highest air temperature ever recorded on Earth at 56.7 degrees Celsius in 1913. Despite this, its average summer temperatures are lower than some other desert regions, making it one of the hottest, but not always the absolute hottest. Number 38. Many assume tornadoes only happen in Tornado Alley, but they actually occur in all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska. While Tornado Alley, stretching from Texas to Nebraska, sees the most frequent tornadoes, some of the deadliest tornadoes in history have occurred outside this region. States like Florida, Kentucky, and Tennessee also experience significant tornado activity. Tornadoes have even been reported in mountainous regions, proving that they are not exclusive to flat plains. Number 39. Many believe that Albert Einstein failed math in school, but this is false. In reality, Einstein was a top student and excelled in mathematics from a young age. This myth likely originated from a misunderstanding of his academic records. As grading systems in Switzerland differed from those in the US, Einstein himself even laughed at this rumor, once stating, Before I was 15, I had mastered differential and integral calculus. He was always brilliant in math. Number 40. A common misconception is that students in the U.S. have summers off because of farming. In truth, early American farm children worked year-round. The long summer break was actually a result of urbanization and health concerns in the 19th century. Schools in hot cities lacked air conditioning, and educators believed children needed time for rest. Wealthy families also took extended vacations. So while rural areas had some seasonal breaks, modern summer vacations were not designed for farming. Number 41. People often assume that public schools in the U.S. are required to teach cursive writing, but this is no longer true. Many states do not mandate cursive in their education standards, and with the rise of keyboards and digital communication, cursive has become less common. While some states, like Texas and California, have reintroduced cursive instruction, most schools now focus more on typing skills. Despite its historical significance, cursive writing is not a universal requirement anymore. Number 42. Many believe that you get one free phone call when arrested, but this is not a constitutional right. The number of phone calls a detainee gets depends on state laws and local policies. In some places, suspects can make multiple calls, while in others, they may have limited or even no immediate phone access. Hollywood movies have popularized the one free call idea, but in reality, police departments have different rules based on jurisdiction. Number 43. A popular myth suggests that murder has no statute of limitations in every state, but this is not universally true. While most states have no time limit for prosecuting murder, a few states allow certain homicide charges to have limitations. Additionally, some types of manslaughter and lesser homicide charges do have time restrictions for prosecution. Federal law typically treats murder as an unlimited time offense, but state laws vary, meaning that not all murders can always be prosecuted. Number 44. It is widely believed that if a burglar gets injured in your home, they can sue you and win. While burglars can sue, they rarely win. Most states have castle doctrine or stand-your-ground laws, protecting homeowners from liability. However, if a homeowner sets intentional traps, like hidden spikes or rigged shotguns, they could be sued. Generally, courts favor property owners, but if negligence is proven, an intruder might have legal grounds to file a case. Number 45. Many believe that NASA spent millions developing a space pen while the Soviets used a pencil, but this is false. Early astronauts did use pencils, but they were dangerous because graphite dust floated in microgravity, risking damage to equipment. The Fisher space pen, developed privately, was later adopted by both NASA and the Soviet Union. The pen was not a government-funded luxury, but an independent invention designed to work in extreme space conditions. Number 46. A widespread myth suggests that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space, but this is not true. While astronauts can see cities, highways, and even airports, the Great Wall is difficult to spot because it blends with the natural landscape. In contrast, structures like the pyramids of Giza and large urban areas are more visible. This myth was popularized before humans had real images of Earth from space. Number 47. People often believe that the moon has a dark side that never sees sunlight. In reality, every part of the moon gets sunlight at different times. The far side of the moon, which faces away from Earth, is often called dark, but it actually experiences day and night cycles, just like the near side. The reason we never see it from Earth is because of tidal locking, meaning the same side always faces us, not because it's always dark. Number 48. A popular myth claims that Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen after his death, but this is entirely false. Disney was cremated 2 days after he died in 1966, and his ashes are interred in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in California. The cryogenic freezing rumor likely originated from science fiction ideas of the time and was reinforced by speculation in the media. No credible evidence suggests that Walt Disney was ever frozen or planned to be revived in the future. Number 49. People assume that the Star-Spangled Banner has always been America's national anthem, but it wasn't officially adopted until 1931. Before that, other patriotic songs like My Country, 'Tis of Thee, and Hail Columbia were more commonly used at national events. The song's lyrics come from a poem written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812, but it took over 100 years before Congress declared it the official anthem of the United States. Number 50. Many believe that Elvis Presley invented rock and roll, but the genre's roots trace back to African American rhythm and blues, R&B artists. Musicians like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe were shaping rock and roll before Elvis became famous. While Presley was a huge cultural icon, he was influenced by earlier artists and helped bring rock and roll to mainstream America. The genre was an evolution of jazz, blues, gospel, and country sounds. Number 51. Many Americans believe the Emancipation Proclamation freed all slaves instantly. In reality, the proclamation, signed by Abraham Lincoln in 1863, only applied to states in rebellion during the Civil War. It did not free slaves in border states loyal to the Union or areas already under Union control. Enslaved people in some regions were only freed when Union forces arrived. True nationwide abolition came with the 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, legally ending slavery everywhere. Number 52. A common myth claims that the American Revolution was fought solely over taxes, specifically the tea tax. While taxation, including the Stamp Act and Tea Act, played a role, the revolution was fueled by a broader range of grievances like lack of representation, British military presence, and restrictions on westward expansion. The famous phrase, "no taxation without representation," oversimplifies the complex causes behind the war. Colonists were fighting for political autonomy, not just to avoid paying taxes. Number 53. People often believe the U.S. president can declare war, but constitutionally, only Congress has the power to declare war. The president, as commander-in-chief, can order military action, but formal declarations of war must be passed by Congress. Despite this, many modern military conflicts like Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan were launched through congressional authorizations or resolutions, not formal war declarations. The last official U.S. declaration of war was in 1942, during World War II against Axis powers. Number 54. Many people believe that Hawaii is the southernmost U.S. state, which is correct, but they also think Florida's Key West is the southernmost point of the continental U.S., and that's partially incorrect. The true southernmost point of the continental U.S. is actually Ballast Key, a private island southwest of Key West. While the famous concrete buoy in Key West is a major tourist photo spot, it's technically not the farthest south a visitor can reach. Number 55. A popular myth claims that Niagara Falls is the tallest waterfall in the world, but it isn't even close. The tallest waterfall is Angel Falls in Venezuela, which drops 3,212 feet compared to Niagara's combined 167-foot drop. Niagara Falls is famous for its powerful flow rate and scenic beauty, but ranks relatively low in terms of height. Its fame comes from location, accessibility, and history as a tourist destination, rather than its actual size among global waterfalls. Number 56. Many assume that Texas is the largest U.S. state by land area, but that's incorrect. The largest is actually Alaska, which is more than twice the size of Texas. Alaska spans over 663,000 square miles, while Texas covers about 268,000 square miles. The misconception likely comes from Texas being the largest of the contiguous 48 states. But when considering total U.S. land, Alaska dominates. Despite its massive size, Alaska remains one of the least densely populated states. Number 57. A common myth is that the stock market and the economy are the same thing. In reality, the stock market reflects the performance of publicly traded companies, while the broader economy includes millions of businesses, jobs, and production metrics. The stock market can boom even during recessions, as seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, where stocks soared while unemployment rose. Many Americans mistakenly equate Wall Street performance with overall economic health, but they operate on different dynamics. Number 58. Many people believe that small businesses pay no taxes due to write-offs and loopholes, but that's false. Small businesses pay various taxes, including federal income tax, state taxes, payroll, and self-employment taxes. While businesses can deduct expenses like equipment or travel, these write-offs do not eliminate all taxes. In fact, according to the IRS, most small businesses pay a tax rate comparable to individual rates. The belief that small businesses are tax-free is largely misunderstood. Number 59. People often believe that credit scores are part of a person's permanent record, but that's not how it works. Credit scores change constantly based on updated data like payments, debt, and inquiries. There is no permanent record of a score that follows someone forever. Negative items like late payments or collections eventually drop off reports, usually after 7 years. Credit can be rebuilt over time, so one bad financial decision doesn't permanently ruin someone's financial future. Number 60. A widespread myth claims that the Vietnam War was fought mostly in Vietnam, but significant combat occurred in neighboring countries like Laos and Cambodia. The U.S. conducted secret bombing campaigns and ground missions in those countries to disrupt supply routes like the Ho Chi Minh Trail. These actions expanded the war beyond Vietnam's borders. Though not always covered in history classes, these covert operations affected millions and contributed to destabilization and long-term consequences in the region. Number 61. Many believe that the U.S. military draft ended because of protests, but the end of the draft in 1973 was primarily due to military reform and policy changes under President Nixon. Although anti-war protests influenced public opinion, the draft was ended as part of creating an all-volunteer force to improve military efficiency and professionalism. Economic factors, shifting military strategies, and technology also reduced the need for conscription. Protests contributed, but policy change ultimately ended the draft. Number 62. A common misconception is that veterans automatically get free lifetime health care from the government, but that's not entirely true. The VA system provides health care for many veterans, but access depends on service length, disability status, and income. Not every veteran qualifies for free care, and some have to pay co-pays or private insurance. Many veterans fall through the cracks and don't receive full coverage. This myth often oversimplifies the complex reality of veterans' healthcare benefits in America. Number 63. Many people think healthcare in America is free for everyone over 65 because of Medicare, but this is misleading. While Medicare helps cover many medical expenses, it is not entirely free. Recipients must still pay premiums, deductibles, and co-pays, especially for outpatient care, prescriptions, and hospital stays. Medicare Part B and Part D have monthly costs. Additionally, long-term care is rarely covered, leaving seniors responsible for expensive services like nursing homes, which surprises many new enrollees. Number 64. A common myth is that the U.S. has the best healthcare system in the world, often because of its advanced technology. While America leads in medical innovation and research, its healthcare system ranks lower in access, efficiency, and health outcomes compared to other developed nations. Countries with universal healthcare often have better overall public health. The U.S. spends more per capita on healthcare than any other country, yet it ranks poorly in life expectancy and infant mortality. Number 65. Many Americans think that the flu shot can give you the flu, but medically, this is impossible. The flu vaccine uses inactivated virus or recombinant proteins, meaning it cannot cause influenza infection. Some people experience mild side effects like soreness or fatigue, which they confuse with the flu. These symptoms are normal immune responses, not illness. Flu vaccines prime the immune system, making infections less likely or less severe. The myth persists, especially during flu season. Number 66. People often believe that Marilyn Monroe was a size 12 or 14 by modern standards, suggesting she was curvier than today's celebrities. However, sizing standards have changed drastically since the 1950s. Monroe's actual measurements would place her closer to a modern size 4 or 6. Vintage sizes were based on different charts, making direct comparisons misleading. This myth is often used to criticize modern beauty standards, but it distorts the reality of Monroe's true figure. Number 67. A popular myth claims that Captain America's shield is made from pure vibranium. But that's not what the original comics say. The shield is canonically made of a unique vibranium steel alloy created by accident in the Marvel Universe. While vibranium absorbs energy, the addition of steel explains the shield's durability and strength. Later movie versions emphasize vibranium, but it wasn't the original material. This mix-up fuels fan debates, often confusing the comics and cinematic universe facts. Number 68. Many people think that The Simpsons is the longest-running TV show in American history, but that's only true for scripted primetime shows. The actual longest-running American TV show is Meet the Press, which started in 1947 and continues today. Several other programs like Guiding Light, a soap opera, also ran longer than The Simpsons. While the animated series holds records for its genre, the myth ignores news and daytime shows with even longer histories. Number 69. Many believe the internet was invented by a private company like Google or Microsoft, but its origins are tied to the U.S. Department of Defense. The internet evolved from ARPANET, a government-funded project launched in the 1960s to connect computers at universities and military bases. The goal was to maintain communication during nuclear threats. Private companies helped build it later, but its backbone was government-funded research. The myth downplays the government's role in creating the digital age. Number 70. A persistent myth is that .com stands for commercial and is US-specific, but .com domains are international and stand for commercial use worldwide. Though the domain system was created in the US, anyone globally can register a .com. It doesn't indicate a business is based in America. Many foreign companies choose .com for brand recognition. Additionally, other domain extensions like .org or .net are just as old but often perceived as less official because of marketing. Number 71. People often think the US leads the world in internet speed and access, but it doesn't. As of recent global rankings, countries like South Korea, Norway, and Singapore offer faster average internet speeds and better broadband access. Rural America especially struggles with slow, expensive internet, creating a digital divide. Though the US is home to major tech giants, its internet infrastructure lags behind in affordability and speed. The myth of American digital superiority is widespread, but outdated. Number 72. Many believe America is a nation of immigrants means everyone came voluntarily. However, this ignores the forced migration of millions of enslaved Africans who were brought against their will. Indigenous peoples were here for thousands of years before European settlers arrived. Additionally, many groups, like Japanese Americans during internment or Mexican laborers during deportation waves, faced forced removal or discrimination. The phrase oversimplifies America's complex history of voluntary and involuntary migration, including colonization and enslavement. Number 73. A widespread myth is that illegal immigration is at historic highs in the US, but recent data shows the number of undocumented immigrants has stabilized or even declined over the past decade. Many undocumented people have overstayed visas rather than crossed borders illegally. Additionally, net migration from Mexico has dropped, and more undocumented immigrants now arrive from Asia and Central America. The idea of record-breaking illegal immigration is often used politically, but doesn't reflect recent reality. Number 74. People often believe that most immigrants refuse to learn English, but studies show that the majority of immigrants do learn English, especially by the second generation. Children of immigrants almost universally become fluent, and many first-generation adults take English as a second-language ESL classes. Historical waves of immigrants face similar language barriers. Over time, English proficiency becomes the norm. The myth persists because of visible language diversity, but it doesn't reflect how assimilation typically unfolds. Number 75. Many believe that Los Angeles is the capital of California, but the real capital is Sacramento. Los Angeles is the largest city in California and famous for Hollywood, but it has never been the state capital. Sacramento became the permanent capital in 1854 due to its central location and river access. Despite this, people often confuse size and popularity with political importance, leading to the widespread but incorrect belief that Los Angeles is California's capital. Number 76. People often assume that Times Square in New York is named for the big clock displays, but that's false. Times Square was named after the New York Times newspaper, which moved its headquarters there in 1904. The famous ball drop tradition began a few years later. While the area is now known for its giant digital billboards and bustling crowds, the name has nothing to do with time or clocks. It honors a media company's old office. Number 77. A common myth claims that the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri, marks the exact geographic gateway to the West, but this is symbolic rather than literal. The arch was designed as a monument to westward expansion, not an official geographic marker. The real geographic center of the contiguous United States is in Lebanon, Kansas, not Missouri. The arch is a stunning architectural achievement, but represents history and spirit more than a precise geographical location. Number 78. Many people think that recycling always guarantees materials are reused, but in reality, a large portion of recyclables in the U.S. ends up in landfills. This happens due to contamination, lack of markets, or insufficient infrastructure. Items like plastic bags, greasy pizza boxes, or mixed plastics are often non-recyclable despite public belief. China's 2018 National Sword Policy, which limited waste imports, made this worse. Recycling helps, but it's not the fail-proof solution people commonly assume it is. Number 79. A common myth is that lightning never strikes the same place twice, but it absolutely does. In fact, tall structures like the Empire State Building are struck dozens of times per year. Lightning naturally seeks the path of least resistance, often hitting the same high point repeatedly. This saying became popular as a metaphor for rare events, but in nature, the exact opposite is true. If conditions are right, lightning can and will strike the same spot again. Number 80. Many assume the U.S. is the most forested country in the world, but that's incorrect. Countries like Russia, Brazil, and Canada have far more forested land. The U.S. ranks high in total forest area, but not at the top. Additionally, much of America's forest land is actively managed for logging and commercial use, especially in places like the Pacific Northwest. The myth likely stems from America's large landmass, but globally, several nations surpass the U.S. in forest coverage. Number 81. A popular belief is that the Pledge of Allegiance was written by the Founding Fathers, but it was actually written in 1892 by Francis Bellamy, a socialist minister. It was created for a national school program marking Columbus Day and did not include the words "under God" until 1954 during the Cold War. The pledge's addition of religious language was intended to contrast American values with communism. The founders had no role in the pledge's creation or wording. Number 82. Many believe that private schools consistently outperform public schools in academic quality, but data shows the gap is much smaller than assumed. When adjusting for family income, resources, and parental education, public schools perform comparably or better in some cases. Private schools vary greatly in quality, and some focus more on religion or specific values rather than academics. The myth persists due to perception, but numerous studies show that wealth and resources often explain achievement differences, not school type. Number 83. It's often assumed that American schools rank highest globally in education, but international tests regularly show U.S. students scoring mid-range in math, science, and reading. Countries like Finland, Singapore, and South Korea often outperform the U.S. in international assessments like PISA tests. Despite high education spending, the U.S. faces challenges like unequal school funding, large class sizes, and poverty. The myth of global academic dominance stems from American cultural influence, not educational superiority in standardized testing. Number 84. People often claim the microwave oven was invented by NASA, but it wasn't. The microwave was discovered accidentally in 1945 by Percy Spencer, an engineer working with radar technology. He noticed a candy bar melting in his pocket near a magnetron. NASA did invent and improve many household items, but the microwave is not one of them. It became a commercial product in the 1960s, transforming American kitchens long before NASA's most famous space missions. Number 85. Many assume that the telephone was purely an American invention, But Alexander Graham Bell, though famous for the telephone patent, was born in Scotland and became a U.S. citizen later. Additionally, inventors like Elisha Gray and Antonio Meucci made similar breakthroughs around the same time. Meucci, an Italian immigrant, had an early working model but lacked funds to patent it. The telephone's invention was a multinational race, not a purely American achievement by Bell alone. Number 86. Many believe that jaywalking is illegal everywhere in America, but the laws vary greatly by city and state. In some places, crossing the street outside of a crosswalk is completely legal if there's no oncoming traffic. Other cities strictly enforce jaywalking fines, especially in busy urban areas like Los Angeles or New York City. The term jaywalking gained popularity in the 1920s, pushed by car companies to shift blame for accidents from drivers to pedestrians. Number 87. A widespread myth suggests that the U.S. government banned the song Louie Louie for obscenity, but this isn't true. The FBI did investigate the song in the 1960s, believing the lyrics were indecent, but they found no evidence of obscenity. The actual lyrics were innocent but hard to understand due to the recording quality. Despite the investigation, Louie Louie was never banned by the government, though some radio stations pulled it temporarily due to parental complaints. Number 88. Many people think that carrots significantly improve your night vision because of wartime American propaganda. During World War II, the British Royal Air Force promoted eating carrots to explain their pilots' success in night missions, hiding the use of radar technology. The myth spread to the U.S. and remains popular. While carrots contain vitamin A, which supports eye health, they do not give superhuman night vision. Overeating carrots may turn skin orange but won't improve eyesight. Number 89. A common belief is that "In God We Trust" was part of American tradition since the Founding Fathers, but it was not adopted as the national motto until 1956, during the Cold War. It replaced the earlier unofficial motto, "E pluribus unum," out of many one. Adding "In God We Trust" aimed to distinguish the U.S. from atheistic communist countries like the Soviet Union. It appeared on coins starting in 1864, but not on paper currency until much later. Number 90. People often assume that American pizza is just like Italian pizza, but the two are drastically different. Italian pizza, particularly Neapolitan pizza, uses fresh mozzarella, minimal toppings, and a thin, charred crust. In contrast, American pizza evolved into styles like New York thin crust, Chicago deep dish, and Detroit square pizza, each loaded with cheese and toppings. The sauce, cheese, and baking methods reflect American tastes, making the American pizza its own creation, not a replica of Italy's. Number 91. A myth claims that the average American family eats dinner together every night, reflecting a wholesome image of traditional life. In reality, busy schedules, sports, and work mean many American families struggle to eat dinner together regularly. Studies show that less than 30% of families manage dinner together daily. The family dinner every night ideal is a romanticized 1950s TV version, not reality. Still, research suggests that shared meals, when possible, improve children's mental health and academics. Number 92. Many people think that the U.S. has freedom of speech without exceptions, but there are several legal limits. For example, threats of violence, defamation, incitement to illegal activity, and child pornography are not protected under the First Amendment. Additionally, private companies and employers can set rules restricting speech within workplaces or platforms. This means that saying anything without consequence is not guaranteed. Freedom of speech protects citizens from government censorship, not from repercussions in all situations. Number 93. People often believe Thanksgiving turkey makes you sleepy because of tryptophan, but this is misleading. While turkey contains tryptophan, so do many other foods like chicken and cheese. The drowsiness people feel after Thanksgiving dinner is mostly caused by overeating heavy carbs, alcohol, and fats, not just turkey. Tryptophan only causes sleepiness in large, isolated doses. Thanksgiving servings don't qualify. The sleepiness is physiological, but the turkey often gets blamed unfairly in this common American holiday myth. Number 94. A widespread myth is that the U.S. Postal Service is fully funded by taxpayers, but it's not. The USPS operates as a self-funded agency. generating revenue from postage, products, and services. It receives no regular tax dollars for operations, though it occasionally gets congressional aid for specific mandates or emergencies. Financial issues at USPS stem from unique obligations, like pre-funding retiree benefits, not direct taxpayer burden. Despite the misconception, your stamps and shipping fees keep the USPS running. Number 95. People often believe that the Wild West was lawless and violent, filled with daily gunfights. But historical records show that most Western towns were surprisingly peaceful. Famous gunfights like the OK Corral were rare. Many frontier towns enforced strict gun control ordinances, requiring people to check weapons upon entering town. Rates of violence were often lower than in modern U.S. cities. Hollywood and dime novels exaggerated Wild West lawlessness for drama, creating a distorted image of constant shootouts. Number 96. Many assume that America's founding fathers were all Christians who created a Christian nation, but the group included deists, agnostics, and skeptics. Leaders like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin openly questioned Christian doctrines. The Constitution avoids religious language, and the First Amendment explicitly prevents establishing a national religion. While Christianity influenced many cultural aspects, the founders prioritized separation of church and state. The myth of America, as founded strictly as a Christian nation, doesn't align with historical writings. Number 97. A common myth is that drinking alcohol destroys brain cells permanently, but science shows that moderate drinking does not kill brain cells. Heavy, chronic alcohol abuse can damage brain tissue and impair function, but the cells themselves don't just die from a few drinks. What alcohol actually disrupts are neurotransmitters and brain communication, leading to temporary cognitive effects. Brain cells are resilient, and moderate alcohol use doesn't result in literal cell death like the myth suggests. Number 98. People believe that all Native American tribes lived in teepees, but only some Plains tribes used them. Tribes from the Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest built longhouses, adobe dwellings, wigwams, or earth lodges suited to their environment. Hollywood and early textbooks reinforce the teepee image, but it's not representative of the vast diversity of Native cultures. For example, the Pueblo people built multi-story stone villages, while Iroquois tribes lived in longhouses. Teepees were practical, but not universal. Number 99. Many people believe that George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and confessed saying, "I cannot tell a lie." But this story is fictional. It was invented by Parson Weems, an early Washington biographer, to promote moral lessons about honesty. There's no historical record of Washington cutting down a cherry tree or making such a statement. The myth stuck because it reinforced idealized American values, but even historians from the 19th century recognized it as pure legend. Number 100. A common myth claims that Walmart is the largest employer in the United States, but that's true for private companies only. The actual largest employer is the U.S. federal government, with millions of civilian and military employees. Walmart employs roughly 2.1 million people worldwide, making it the largest private employer, but the government workforce, including the military, USPS, and civil service, is larger. The confusion comes from reports focusing only on the private sector rather than total employment. Number 101. People believe that Christopher Columbus proved the Earth was round, but educated Europeans already knew this by the 15th century. Ancient Greeks, like Eratosthenes, calculated Earth's circumference centuries earlier. Columbus underestimated the Earth's size, which is why his plan to reach Asia by sailing west was rejected by some scholars. His accidental discovery of the Americas was due to luck, not groundbreaking science. The myth that Columbus discovered the Earth's roundness misrepresents